When it comes to foldable phones, there are two schools of thought. One flexible display that folds into two, and two displays that fold on a hinge. That first group is the most exciting place to be in 2020, with fantastic designs by Samsung, Huawei, Motorola, and even TCL catching our attention. The second group has, for the most part, been a solo affair for LG, up until Microsoft announced its first Android phone would also have two screens. And if you ask me, while one bendable display is exciting and captivating, two screens is more practical, not to mention more affordable. Yep, while phones with folding displays will cost between $1,400 to $3,000, LG's new dual screen phone is only $1 shy of $900. But should you buy it? And is it your gadget match? Hi, I'm MICHAELJOSH, and you're watching Gadget Match. It's been a busy month of tech launches, and I've been sitting on one review of this phone, a review that I believe is worth your time. Now, some will say this review is delayed. Touché. Some have already prejudged me and said, maybe I'm just not a fan. On the contrary, I'm a believer in LG's dual screen proposition, so much so that I wanted to do this review justice. This phone is the most affordable, foldable phone that you can buy today. Here it is, the LG V60 ThinQ 5G dual screen. That's a mouthful, so moving forward, we're just going to call this phone the V60. How about that? This is our LG V60 unboxing and review. Inside this package are two boxes. One contains the phone, the other its dual screen case. Depending on where you are in the world, it will either be sold as a set or separately, but for the purpose of this review, when I say V60, I refer to both of them together as a whole. Here we go, let's lift the lid up. Of course, it's not an LG phone if you don't get a microfiber cloth for wiping off those unsightly smudges. Very nice touch. Next up is the phone itself. There's a pull tab over here, and we have it in classy blue. It's like the smartphone gods have heard my plea all these years, because every flagship smartphone of 2020 comes in some sort of blue. Warranty information. LG says they're so confident in the quality of this phone that they're offering up to 2 years of warranty coverage. I must say that's a really nice inclusion, something that most of us users tend to overlook. Also in the box, a packet containing the SIM ejector tool and a user guide. Underneath, a USB-C to USB-C charging cable and a 25-watt fast charger. Bad news, headphones are not included in the box. I think LG is trying to sell you on their tone-free wireless earbuds. Yep, LG has them too. Good news, the phone has a 3.5mm headphone jack, which means you can use any pair of headphones that you have at home. Now let's peel off the plastic, the stickers, and more plastic. There. Immediately, fingerprint smudges abound. Next, the dual screen case. Up front, there are illustrations on how to best insert the phone, but if you keep watching, I'll teach you myself. Let's peel that off and see what else is in here. Another quick start guide, and an adapter for charging the secondary display using the same USB-C cable. Okay, let's try this case on. Slide the phone in towards the USB-C port, press on the edges here, there, easy. Now, that's putting the case on. Taking it off is easy too, although it might take a little bit of getting used to. You start on the left-hand side and you push on the camera to get it out. Before we start the review, let's set up the phone, shall we? Since this is the T-Mobile version, we get a T-Mobile welcome screen. Let's pop in the SIM. Place my finger on the sensor over here. Okay, and now we're ready for our review. As always, I'll try to answer some of your questions along the way. I've even brought in some of my friends to help. Now, if you enjoy this kind of tech content, consider subscribing and hitting that bell icon to turn on notifications. We recently hit 500,000 subscribers, and with your help, we can easily get to 1 million real soon. This is the LG V60. And so that you get a better feel for its size, here's my iPhone 11 Pro Max, another large phone. As you can see, the V60 is a big device, one of the biggest we've reviewed this year. Bigger even than the Galaxy S20 Ultra. Admittedly, this size is not for everyone. I personally prefer smaller form factors, but where the V60 is concerned, I actually don't mind considering what this phone is all about and how it's meant to be used. Is it heavy, though? The phone weighs in at 213 grams. Interestingly enough, it's lighter than both the 11 Pro Max and the S20 Ultra. With the case on, it weighs 354 grams. There's a certain simple sophistication about the V60's design. The shape of its back and its rounded corners have the distinct LG stamp to it. I like the chamfered edges on the screen itself, and the gold or silver metallic accents around the camera module and frame. But in a sea of 2020 flagships, nothing about its design makes the V60 stand out. It doesn't come in flashy colors. You either get a muted shade of blue or pearlescent white, and its sides are flat, very different from the tapered edges of its rivals. When you turn the phone on, the differences are even more evident. It's almost like LG went in a completely different direction this year. If you take a look at all these flagships we've put through the ringer this year, one thing you'll find they have in common is a focus on displays, marketing materials that scream of faster refresh rates, curved edges, some going as far as wrapping around the phone. You're not gonna find any of that on the V60. Its POLED display has the old 60Hz standard, its resolution a mere Full HD+, and instead of a more sexy camera punch hole, it's got a notch similar to that of the OG notch smartphone, the Essential PH1 from 2017. On paper, this doesn't look good for LG. Some of you even pointed this out in the comments of my last V60 video. But even if it doesn't have all the bells and whistles other flagships offer, I really don't mind the flat display, the larger bezels, and even the notch. None of these take away from the experience. I know some of you feel strongly about a 1080p display not being enough in 2020, but I personally believe it is. Now, even my S20 has a Quad HD display, but out of the box, it's set to Full HD Plus by default, and I leave it just like that. Whether you're watching movies or browsing on Instagram, this OLED display is still sufficiently bright. Colors pop, and best of all, you have two of them. So if LG went down a different route in terms of design and display, Carlos on Facebook asks, what unique feature does it have? If LG could write the rules, they'd tell you, two displays are better than one. And that's the whole premise behind the V60. Just as it was the V50 and the G8X last year. And if you've seen any of those videos, you'll know it's an idea that I've always believed in. And apparently, a lot of you do too. Let's talk about that dual screen case for a while. The display on it is exactly the same as the one on the phone. It even has a notch, even if it's purely cosmetic. LG went to great lengths to ensure that you get the same experience regardless of whether you use this display, or both. When you flip the case shut, there's a tiny non-touch display on the outside that shows time and notifications. If someone calls you, it will show up here as well. No need to open the case, just hit the Google Assistant button on the left to answer. The back of the case is more rugged than previous iterations. It has a rubbery matte texture, which brings back really fond memories of the rugged V10, and ridges that remind me of Rimowa luggage. Oh, how I miss traveling. I'm sure you do too, but I digress. Let's go back to the two screens are better than one proposition. There are many practical reasons why LG's push towards the dual screen form factor might be right on the money. You really just have to think about the various multitasking opportunities that having two screens can afford. In its simplest form, that might just mean being able to watch a movie on one screen while doing something else on the other. Now, that's not a gimmick. Just think of all the times when you were watching a video and then a message came in that needed answering. You can do that at the same time with two screens. Or how when you're watching a cooking video on YouTube. If that's your jam, you'll know that hosts often don't dive into specifics when it comes to ingredients. So how nice would it be to have the recipe open on the other window? Huh? That's perfect for the dual screen too. More on watching videos later, but first let's talk about getting work done. Like when we explored the possibilities of having a secondary screen on a laptop when we reviewed the ZenBook Pro Duo last year, having an extra display on my phone means being able to optimize. Google Docs and Microsoft Office support the dual screen. You can either have your document list open on one window and the file open on another, or maybe one window has an Excel file and the other a Word document. Or two Google Docs open side by side, perhaps one is a reference document. You can easily copy-paste between both windows, or you can have that second display show anything else you like. A sports game you're tracking, your Twitter feed. Oh, and because all of us are in quarantine, this is something that a lot of you in the workforce might appreciate. You could be on one Zoom work call on one screen and take notes on the other, or any other distraction of your choosing. And here's a cool feature that's built into the software. When you're browsing Instagram, Twitter, or reading an article, you can easily send a snippet of your screen to someone you're chatting with. Say I want to send this tweet to the GadgetMatch team via Messenger. All I need to do is tap this button over here, and the screenshot automatically attaches. Now, I know some of you will say I can take screenshots without a dual screen case. That's not a feature, but this is instantaneous. As soon as you hit that button, it goes directly to your intended recipient. It doesn't save a copy in your gallery too, so you're not clogging it up with screenshots that you might not really need after you've sent it. But enough about work and productivity. That's not all I use my phone for. For a lot of people, nothing beats holding and turning pages on an actual book. But since we're all in isolation and bookstores are closed, this might be the closest thing we get to that experience. Document Reader Librera can mimic that by splitting the pages on each screen. When you open an ebook like this one, use book mode and switch to 2 pages. You'll also need wide mode for LG, a third-party app that you can get from the Play Store. This way, you can have the view of 2 pages on both screens, just like you would on a real book. This case also makes watching Netflix a lot more convenient. I can just prop it up like I would a laptop, or in tent mode so I don't have to hold it when I'm in bed, or when I'm catching up on my YouTube subscriptions while having coffee. With the Whale browser, also available on the App Store, I can shop and view the listing on one screen and individual results on the other without having to hit the back button each time. And then there's Game Mode, which gives me a virtual joystick that I can customize whichever way I want to. When playing Street Fighter, for example, I map these buttons to match the on-screen controls. For those who want a piece of nostalgia with a little bit of tinkering, you can emulate the Nintendo DS experience on the V60 with the dual screen. With third-party app Drastic DS, you can play games like Pokemon Diamond like you used to on your old DS. The way Game Mode turns the secondary display into a controller is reminiscent of a Game Vice attachment, or the Kunai Gamepad for the ROG Phone 2. But the question is, does the gamepad really elevate the gaming experience? Or at the very least, does it make you play better? My buddy Anabang, also known as Bored at Work, also known as Colonel Singala, recently did a gaming-specific video on the V60, so I've invited him today to answer that question. E?
Well, I do think that LG's dual display adds a whole lot to the gaming experience for the V60. For one, you now have the ability to create your custom controls for any of the games you play. So you can have a control for Street Fighter, for King of Fighters, for Call of Duty, for PUBG, and you can access them anytime you want on a secondary display, which gives you full access and view access to your main display to look at the games you want to without having your fingers impede on that visual experience. So I think that's something sampling is really nice. Now, it's not fully perfect, but I do like the fact that LG has this kind of combo for the V60 that makes it really sensible. And if you mobile game like me, then it makes a whole lot of sense, and I think it will work.
Thanks, E. If you guys want to see his video, you can click over here to watch that. We'll also put a link below. Kevin Cheng asks, can you play 2 games at the same time? I don't know why you might want to do this, but you can have 2 games open at the same time, but you cannot play them simultaneously. I guess it makes sense if you were trying to kill time at an airport, for example. One person could be playing Plants vs. Zombies and the other Mini Metro. But the problem is, when someone touches the screen on the phone, the game on the other screen will pause. So I don't think it's designed for that specific purpose. Cool idea though. For a long time now, Samsung's Galaxy Note series has been the only device in its class with proper pen support. That changes with the LG V60, a feature that doesn't get talked about a lot. It supports any pen with Wacom's AES built in. Pens like this $50 bamboo ink work great with pressure sensitivity and tilt response for when you hold your pen at an angle like this. So when you're using your phone for taking notes, signing documents, sketching, or even using it to play games, the V60 can handle that too. It's not as feature-rich as the Note, and the pen is still a separate purchase, but this is definitely a feature you can't find on most other flagship smartphones. This also makes the V60 the only foldable phone with pen support. Of course, many of you wanted to know about the camera, particularly if it could keep up with today's flagships. A must to remain competitive, if you ask me. Let's talk about camera hardware for a second. The V60 has 3 rear cameras, a 64 megapixel wide-angle lens, and a 13 megapixel ultra-wide-angle lens, and a time-of-flight sensor. Zmox asks, no zoom? Yep, LG made the interesting decision to remove the zoom lens this year. While I've always been a fan of phones with dedicated telephoto cameras, for everyday use, the 2x digital zoom on the V60 is sufficient. So what the phone does is uses its 64 megapixel sensor to capture as much detail as possible, and then it digitally crops in. Here's what it looks like at 2x, 5x, and 10x. Photo quality is still good because of that larger image sensor. When it comes to outdoor shots, during the day, the dedicated zoom lens will capture more detail when you really punch in. But indoors, when it's less bright, I'd argue that the V60 actually does a better job versus the V50, even without that dedicated zoom lens. Back in 2016, LG was the first smartphone brand to put an ultra-wide-angle lens on a smartphone. So it's no surprise that it kept the ultra-wide-angle lens on the V60. It's great for nice dramatic wide shots during the day, and you can even use it with night mode, producing these kinds of shots when it's dark out. That said, its standard 64 megapixel wide-angle camera with a much larger image sensor is what keeps the V60 competitive. Take a look at these photos we shot around Brooklyn. Even at night, the results were good. Not the best, but good enough. And it's really in low light where you can see how big an improvement in its camera versus the V50. These shots were taken using Night View, LG's version of long exposure night mode. But of course, what you guys want to know is how it compares to phones in its price point. We tested versus the OnePlus 8, which is $100 cheaper, the Pixel 4, which is the same price, and the Galaxy S20 Plus, which is $400 more. The V60 is competitive during the day. Picking one over the other is a subjective chore. At night, nothing still comes close to the Pixel 4 among Android phones. In low light, the V60 outperforms the OnePlus 8. If you want to see a more detailed comparison, my buddy Danny Wingett published this comprehensive head-to-head with Samsung's flagship, and he's here today to answer that same question. Danny, can the LG V60's camera really compete against other camera smartphones in its price point?
When it comes to just pure auto mode on the LG V60 camera, it might not be directly comparable to some of the other flagships out there, but when I did my extensive camera comparison versus the Galaxy S20 Ultra, a lot of people in the comments said it did very well or even surpassed the S20 Ultra in certain scenarios. So even though that the V60 camera software can use an update, I think where you're gonna shine on this is if you know how to use the manual mode on the V60, because there's still no other camera out there that has that much control over photo, video, and audio. So I think if you know what you're doing, you can make a flagship camera experience out of the V60, and I might dare to say that this is a very underrated, or the most underrated camera of 2020.
Again, you can watch Danny's video by clicking right here. We'll also put a link below. Now, before we move on to the selfie camera discussion, we learned one thing during our review process. If you're taking photos at night, you'll want to take off the case. We noticed that the mirror finish on the case was reflecting light onto the lens, creating these light streaks in all our night photos. Of course, that's fine if you think of it as an effect, but this is definitely a design issue. Hopefully that gets addressed in the next iteration. Up front is a 10 megapixel selfie camera. Quality-wise, it's a step up from last year's V50, except for the fact that last year, LG also offered a wide-angle camera up front, which is always nice to have. But I'll take better quality selfies over a wide-angle camera any day. Of course, I'd like to have them both. Speaking of the selfie camera, there are two features worth talking about. For those Instagram boyfriends and girlfriends out there, you can use the selfie camera to shoot a photo of someone else, and then press this button over here to activate the selfie monitor, which activates the other screen so the other person sees a preview of the photo you're taking. That way, the photo comes out just the way the diva model had imagined. No need to retake. Another feature uses the secondary screen as a fill flash. You can adjust from cool to warm, just in case you need extra lighting for those low-light selfies. I can think of at least one person who could benefit from this feature. Another area where LG excels is audio, both in terms of recording and listening. Having 4 microphones allows the phone to record natural ambient sound coming from multiple directions. And here's what it sounds like with all that noise turned down. I suppose you might hear the hum of my vent over there because of those 4 microphones are designed to pick up natural ambient sound. And quickly, I want to show you a new feature called Voice Bokeh, which supposedly minimizes background noise and focuses on mine, boosting my volume. I have the TV on and the Sonos playing some music. So over here, we're turning on Voice Bokeh so that the audio is focused on me and not what's happening around me. Let me know if it makes a difference in the comments section below. Oh, before I forget, there's also ASMR mode, which really boosts pickup. You know what? This is silly. Instead, check out a video I shot using ASMR mode on the V60. Gin and tonic. The V60 also has stereo speakers, and they are both quite powerful. You have a 1-watt speaker up here on the earpiece and a 1.3-watt bottom firing speaker. My amateur ears can definitely tell the difference versus both the V50 and my current favorite, the OnePlus 8 Pro. Not only is the volume loud, it's a good balance of bass and treble. Overall, the volume coming from these speakers is rich and full and balanced. Audiophiles will also appreciate 32-bit quad DAC support, meaning you can enjoy high-quality sound closer to the original, with an audio service and headphones that support DAC, of course. And yep, you plug those headphones in via the phone's headphone jack. The LG V60 comes with a bigger than average 5000 milliamp hour battery. This extra juice in the bank is necessary considering the secondary display is powered by the phone and does not have a battery of its own. That said, even with plenty of dual screen use, the V60 lasted me more than an entire day on a single charge. About 9 hours of screen on time. Without the case, battery life is even more impressive, close to 2 days with average use. And when it finally conked out, the bundled 25-watt charger got me to 50% in 30 minutes and 82% after an hour. It slows down after that. I finally got to 100 in 1 hour and 45 minutes, which was still respectable considering its large battery. Mr. Reddick asks, does it come with a Quick Charge 4.0 charger? Yes, both the phone and the charger support Quick Charge 4.0 Plus. Can you charge it with the case on? Yes, you can. LG actually includes a dual screen charging adapter that magnetically attaches to the bottom of the case like so. And in case you're wondering, charging speeds are not affected by this attachment. It takes the same amount of time as it were if you plug it in directly. And in case you misplace them, LG sells replacements for $8.99 a pop. Ethan asks, does it have wireless charging? Yes, the phone will wirelessly charge with any Qi wireless charging accessory, even with the case on. That said, don't expect the same super fast wireless charging speeds we've seen from the likes of the OnePlus 8 Pro. Is it like having two phones in one? I'm gonna say no. First of all, the phone does not have dual SIM support, at least not the model that I'm reviewing. Secondly, while some apps will allow you to install the same instance of one app twice, like on WhatsApp, I don't think that's the point of this phone. Before we wrap up, it's a rapid fire round. Does it have an IP rating? Yep, the V60 has an IP68 rating, but that rating does not cover the case. How's LG software in 2020? It's fine, it's not my favorite Android implementation, but it doesn't offend me either. Unlocked version? Not in the US, nope. In other markets, maybe. What about security? The V60 actually has a built-in in-display fingerprint scanner. It's actually one of my biggest complaints about the device. It's slow and unreliable. So, is the LG V60 ThinQ 5G dual screen your gadget match? At just under $800, LG puts itself in a very good position as one of the most affordable flagships in the market today. When last year's V50 was released, it was priced at $200 higher. So clearly, LG's strategy is different this year, and it's one that I fully support. With the likes of Xiaomi and Oppo and to a certain point OnePlus pricing within striking distance of Samsung and Apple, I've said repeatedly in my reviews of those phones that while specs and performance-wise the price ask is justified, brand-wise they're not there yet. So the best thing for them to do is to be able to undercut competition with competitive pricing. That's exactly what LG did this year, and they chose to focus on one important feature that everybody else seems to have deprioritized. While every phone powered by a Qualcomm Snapdragon 865 processor, apart from that $700 non-Pro OnePlus 8, starts at $900, you can get the LG V60 for just $1 short of $800. To do that, LG's had to make some compromises, like not to include faster refresh rates and higher resolution screens. I'm gonna say the controversial thing here and call some of those features gimmicky. But to quote my buddy Chris Velasco of Engadget, while the industry has started to change, our eyes haven't. What I'm trying to say is that if these are cuts needed to deliver a more affordable price, then I don't need that higher res display. That said, the LG V60 also delivers in other areas. Between its loudspeakers, quad DAC support, and headphone jack, its audio features are hands down better than any brand. To say its battery life is impressive is an understatement. Pen support is a plus, and the possibilities its dual screen case offers ushers in a new way of thinking about computing on a smartphone. Ken asks on Instagram, do you really need that extra screen? Need? Probably not. All of us can do anything that we need to do on just one slab of glass. But what you're buying when you get the V60 is the option to elevate your multitasking, productivity, and entertainment game to a whole nother level. The option to pair accessories, add a secondary screen, use your wired headphones, as well as a third-party stylus. Those are things that all-in-one you can't find on any other phone. And for all of these things, we give it the GadgetMatch seal of approval. And if these things appeal to you, then the LG V60 is your gadget match. If you're looking for the best Android camera phone, get the Pixel 4. Still the champ in my book, and from the looks of it, it's on sale right now for only $499. Is it really an upgrade, something that you want? I assume you're talking about whether or not this phone is an upgrade from the V50. If you own last year's model, the camera is such a huge improvement on the V60, but I'd still wait another year nonetheless. What about the $700 OnePlus 8? That's the cheapest Snapdragon 865 device. If processor is really your most important consideration, then go ahead. The OnePlus 8 is the cheapest Snapdragon 865 option out there. And come to think of it, it's not talked about as much for the same reasons why tech nerds pass on the V60, the lack of a high-res screen and fewer cameras. I wouldn't recommend the V60 if you were looking to save money. Sure, get the OnePlus 8 if you really want that processor, but I'd argue there are great choices for less, like Google's Pixel 3a, and even last year's OnePlus 7T. I have one last friend to bring on, Juan Carlos Bagnell, some gadget guy who's really covered the V60 extensively and whose thoughts best summarize the points that I'm trying to make. Juan?
For me, the big hook with the V60 is choice. In one phone, you can have a regular phone, you can have a Note competitor, you can have a Surface competitor, and consumers aren't married to one feature set or form factor.
I couldn't have said it any better. And that was our LG V60 ThinQ unboxing and review. If you like this video, make sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel. Hit that bell icon so that you get notified as soon as we post a new video. Follow us on social media for all the behind the scenes fun stuff. And as always, make GadgetMatch.com your daily habit. Until the next video, I'm MICHAELJOSH. Thanks for dropping by.